Hi third graders! This week we're going to keep learning about measuring shapes, but now we're going to start talking about perimeter. Perimeter is when you measure around the outside of a shape. So, by the end of this week you should be able to tell what perimeter is and how it's different than area. And you should also be able to measure the perimeter of shapes that have straight sides. Let's get started. So, like I said before, perimeter is another way of measuring a shape. Last week we learned about measuring area, the space inside the shape. So to measure all of this space inside, that would be the area. For this shape, the area would be 2, because it's 2 squares tall, times 4, because it's 4 squares long. 2 times 4 is 8. The area would be 8. This week, we're talking about perimeter. Perimeter goes around the outside. So we could measure 2 squares on this side, 4 squares across that side, 2 squares on this side, and 4 squares across the top. We would add all of those up to get the perimeter. 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 4 equals your perimeter. Now you might see that as 2 plus 4 is 6, plus another 6, or you could see it as doubles. 2 and 2 make 4, and these 4s add together to make 8. Either way you do it, you would get the perimeter of this shape is 12. So once more, perimeter goes around the outside of a shape. And area is the middle. In fact, if you want a little taste of 5th grade, the word perimeter can help you remember what you're measuring. So this word comes from Greek, and we use the chunks of the word to figure out what it means. Meter, you're familiar with from our measurement units. Meter just translates to measure. And that beginning, that peri part, that one is around. When you see words that have peri in them, it means this is something about around. So perimeter is measuring around something. Again, if that was confusing for you, don't worry about that. This bit with the Greek roots, that's 5th grade stuff. But if it helps, cool. So let's do a couple practice problems. I've drawn another square here, and to measure the perimeter, we measure the length of each side going around the outside. So the length of this side is 3, and this side is 3. This side is 3 as well. Honestly, because it's a square, all the sides are equal. To measure the perimeter, we need to add up all of the sides. Take a moment and see if you can figure this one out before me. Are you ready? Okay, on this one I could go 3 plus 3 is 6, and this 3 plus 3 make another 6, and then all together the perimeter is 12. That's interesting. The perimeter is the same as our last shape, but the shape is different. That can happen sometimes when you're doing area and perimeter. Let's do another practice problem. Okay, on this one, I would like you to try and solve it on your own, but pause the video. I've given you the measurements of each side, the dimensions of this rectangle. It's your job to figure out the perimeter by adding them up. Are you ready? Okay, for this one, we need to add up a 5 and a 4 and a 5 and a 4. Now, my brain likes to put the two 5s together when I add, because that'll make a nice friendly 10. But as long as you are adding up all the numbers, it will work. Let's see. 5 plus 5 makes a 10, plus 4 plus 4 is an 8. The perimeter was 18. All right. Now, most problems where you're measuring the perimeter, you can do it like this. But sometimes you're going to run into a problem where they've given you some of the numbers, but they've left some of them out. I'll show you what I mean. As you're doing your workbook pages, you might run into a problem like this. They've given you the perimeter, but there's a mystery number in one of the dimensions, one of the measurements. You can solve that by writing an equation with the mystery number in it. We know that to find the perimeter, we have to add them all up, plus mystery number, something, and we know that it equals 10 altogether as the perimeter. This one you could solve by really studying the picture, or by adding these up and figuring out how much more you would need to get to 10. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1 more is 9, plus something equals 10. How long is our mystery side? It's 1. Okay, this is the last practice one we're going to do together today, and then I'll turn you loose on the workbook. I mentioned earlier that the target for this week is being able to measure the perimeter of any shape with straight sides. It doesn't have to be a rectangle or a square. We can find the perimeter of an octagon like this. We do the same steps. You add up the length of the sides to find the perimeter. Take a minute, pause the video, and try and solve the perimeter of this shape. Okay, let's see if what you did is basically the same as what I did. Well, to find the perimeter, we need to add it all up. So I'll start here, and I think I'm going to make a little dot to make sure I don't add up the same number more than once. So we've got a 1, and another 1, and another 1. Oops, what am I doing? Where's my plus signs? Good grief. 1 plus 1 plus 1. Ah, there's the 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 and plus that final 2. Okay, and I'm being careful not to add this one again because that's where I started. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The perimeter is 10. Now that we've done all these practice problems, let's take a look at the workbook pages for this week. Okay, on page 207, first, it's going to have you look at the shape, and it's given you the dimensions, and then it's going to have you solve the perimeter by measuring around the outside, and it's going to have you solve the area by multiplying the short side times the long side of the rectangle. You get to do that with these 3. Down here, things get a little crazy. On this shape, they've given you some of the dimensions, but they haven't given you all of them. This one's a bit of a challenge, but if you think about it in different sized rectangles, maybe this is a rectangle, or this is. If you cut it into friendlier parts, that can help. You could also think about putting this piece back in. That would make it a square. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Imagine a square that is 5 tall and 5 across, and then subtract the little piece in the corner. That piece right here, because this wasn't part of the original shape. its dimensions were 1 by 2. If you take the big square and subtract the missing bit, that will give you the area of the shape. For perimeter, you're going to have to count around the outside, but there's going to be some tricky spots when they didn't give you some of the measurements. I'm not going to tell you all of how to do that one because I want to leave it as a bit of a puzzle. But this idea of thinking about what the whole shape would have been if it was a square and subtracting things out might help. Or maybe thinking about this is 1 and this is something, but if you put the 1 and the something together, it would be the same length as that 5. The other page we're doing this week is 209. 209 starts out pretty similar to the other page. The only thing is, this time, it's having you measure the side lengths with centimeters. There's two ways you could do that. You could hunt down a ruler at home, one that has centimeters on it, but you could also, if you don't have a ruler, use some estimating. I know from our measurement unit that the width of my pinky is about 1 centimeter. On this one that they've already filled in, I can prove it. 1 pinky, 2 pinky, 3 pinkies. So about 3 centimeters. It's not perfect, but it will get you close enough that you can write down the dimensions and solve the perimeter in the area. There's another challenge problem down here, kind of like the one on the last page. This time you need to measure the dimensions so that you can find the perimeter in the area. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next video.